Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Megan Kim. I'm the Executive Director for COSI and also a Senior Vice President with the Greater Cleveland Partnership. At COSI and the Greater Cleveland Partnership, we certainly know that this is a very challenging time for you and your business. And that's why we're doing everything in our power to ensure we're supporting you, providing you with the right resources, solutions, and information, and advocating on your behalf at the local, state, and federal levels. Remember that we literally exist to serve you, so please let us know anything that we can do to help you as you manage through this pandemic. One of our priorities is to host webinars like this one today to not only keep you informed and engaged, but to also give you the tools you need to continue business operations and from our perspective, emerge successfully from the impact of COVID-19. Today's topic is Start Your Engines, Get in Gear, and Stay in Gear after COVID-19. Before we get started, a few housekeeping things just to make sure we're all on the same page. I want to make sure today's presentation is extremely valuable for you and as interactive as possible. So I ask that you take a moment to see where you can submit all of your questions. Simply click on the questions button in the control panel, and you can type your questions in there and hit send. We will be taking questions during the presentation and monitoring those, and then we'll answer them at the end of the question or at the end of the webinar, excuse me. We do have Reagan Leatherman on the line from our team who will be asking those questions of Kurt. So let me introduce you to our speaker this afternoon. Kurt Troy began his business and executive coaching practice 6 years ago after a successful 32-year career in the banking industry, including 22 years with U.S. Bank, where he held the positions of market president and executive vice president. Kurt is also certified as a transformational leadership coach, a transformational methodology that he would like the world to know and to practice. He's worked with numerous executives, management, and sales teams to achieve true transformation in their organizations and personally without having to sacrifice their wellness, personal, or family lives in the process. Kurt, thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing from you. I will hand it over to you to get us started.
Great, thank you so much, Megan, and Reagan, and all the help that you've been in getting this set up. And I guess first of all, to everyone, thank you for joining the workshop. We're doing this for you, and truly hope that if there's any way to help you through all this and into the future, that you can get something from our workshop today. More importantly, I want to say congratulations for being here. You being on this webinar shows a commitment to yourself, a commitment to your company, and a commitment to all the people that impacts. And so my hat goes off to you because you're the ones who are going to help us all get through all this. Today is a lot about mindset. And Megan mentioned the transformational part of this. And transformation all starts in our own little heads because that's also where all of our obstacles start as well. But we're going to talk about mindset kind of in general, but then specific to this crisis. And then we're going to move into kind of a bigger picture of what's this crisis management all about? And how do you actually put together a crisis management plan? And then we're going to kind of dial that down to getting into action and taking action, most importantly, based upon what we have learned from the crisis. Now, it may seem odd to say, well, why are we talking about crisis management preparation right now? Well, we're going to learn a lot. As we look at this, we're going to see, well, where did we prepare well? Where didn't we prepare well? That should be a part of an action plan for the future because, as we now know, things can change very, very rapidly and more dramatically than perhaps we even thought possible. So that'll be important. But the more important thing for today is what have we learned and how can we be even better and stronger today and moving forward into the future. So it's a big, big deal. I just heard this morning a little story. If anyone knows Brene Brown, she's a wonderful speaker. She has some great YouTubes out there. She's probably best known for her YouTube on vulnerability. But she apparently has done, I've not seen this, I just saw an interview with her. She apparently has done a video on, I think it was a commencement address to graduates. And the interviewer asked Brene Brown, they said, you said that there was a question that you would want to ask any applicant for new jobs. So as we can imagine, the students coming out of high school and out of college are looking for employment. This is a tough time, but they will be interviewing. And Brene Brown said, I would want to know how they worked through this pandemic, what they learned, how they adjusted through this. She said, that is gold. That is going to tell me a lot about how they were able to pivot through this and move through it. And so that's really where we are. So my last comment to you before we get into these slides is a request that you be selfish today. I know that sounds odd, but I'm going to ask you to take this time for yourself. Be present. It's always hard for us to be present. Being virtual makes it even more difficult. Thankfully, something like GoToMeeting and Zoom and all those make us a little closer. It's a challenge to be present. I ask you to be selfish and present, and to take this rare opportunity today to think and to work on your business and not just in it. And whether you are a sole proprietor or you are running a large business, oftentimes we end up spending too much time in that business, working, and not on it, thinking about it. So today's a time to think in preparation to take some action. So with that, why don't we get to it? And there we go. So again, as I said, how to plan for the future, but studying yesterday, we've all of us have heard many times, you learn from history. So, okay, we're in the middle of history right now. We don't have to wait a year, 20 years to learn from this. We can learn now. And again, it can help us for future planning, but it can help us today as well. So the first thing that I want to talk about is to kick off this whole mindset conversation. So hopefully everyone is seeing the presentation and the crises. Crises have three psychological phases. First is that emergency phase, where it's kind of odd. It's like the chaos has happened, something has happened, and there's this urgency of a shared clear goals and feeling almost energized by it, and focused and maybe even productive. This is what happened to us when this all first started, right? We kind of go into that emergency mode. The adrenaline kicks in, and we do what we have to do to adjust as quickly as possible. But the next phase is this regression. We realize the future is uncertain, and certainly it is. We lose a sense of purpose. We maybe get tired, we maybe get irritable, we maybe start to withdraw, and we maybe start to be less productive. And then hopefully we move into recovery and we begin to reorient. What's this new world all about? What are our new circumstances? And we revise our goals. We say, all right, listen, that was then, this is now, what do we have to do? We look at expectations, we looked at roles for ourselves, for employees, and we begin to focus on moving beyond this and versus just kind of getting by. And I think the important thing here is that all of this is normal. These are normal reactions to abnormal situations. So regardless of where you are and what phase you went through, this is no time to beat ourselves up. These are our natural reactions, just like we have natural reactions to other tragedies in our lives, be it death of a loved one or losing a job. We go through phases, and these are the phases we go through with a crisis. Now, my guess is that maybe some of us are here. So maybe ask yourselves, are you here? Are you in that regression spot? And what's it going to take to move to recovery? And I'm not saying for a minute this is easy. Anybody that says this has been easy, it's hard for me to understand that because this is not like anything we've gone through before. Uh, does that mean you're dealing with it fine and you've got a great mental health? That's great, but it's still tough. It's still tough. Now, perhaps you have seen or even read the book about the growth mindset, but there really are two different key mindset differences here, excuse me. First is that fixed mindset of a belief that you're born with a certain amount of intelligence, a certain amount of potential, and that's just the way it is. Or maybe if you take yourselves out of this and you think about your company, the belief that, well, we're only capable of doing this, and this is kind of our little niche, and that's just fine. That's all. That's the way it is. And there are drawbacks to that, right? There's kind of an arrogance about it. There's the position of you think you're always right. It's like, oh, we can't do that. We only do this. That's not what we do. A bit of a show off can show up here. We can give up. We can get upset when things go wrong. There's a lot of negative talk, when things don't go right. Most importantly, I believe, is this limit from learning new things, for trying new things, because you're so set in this fixed mindset. And so the alternative, of course, is growth. The belief that we're capable of working hard to increase our potential and intelligence. We're never as smart as we can be. There's always something to learn. There's always a new horizon here. And there's some interesting benefits of that. It's kind of a humbleness, right? It's like, all right, listen, I don't know everything. I don't have to have all the answers. This is that I mentioned Brene Brown, vulnerability, and being able to be vulnerable. What do you learn from that, and what can you get from that? Learning from our mistakes. Probably everybody on this phone, myself included, has made mistakes through this time, and being open to learn from those is critical. You believe you can become smarter. I know I can. What was Pooh, the bear of little brain, right? Turns out he was quite brilliant, but he was humble in that way. Speak positively to yourselves. Listen, there's a lot of tough times out there, and there's plenty of negativity out there, but we really need to be positive with ourselves, not beat ourselves up for the past. And honestly, this is what coaching is all about. Coaching is all about the future, right? It's all future oriented. Yeah, if somebody screwed up, made a mistake, fine. Let's learn from it. Let's move on, and let's move to the future. And what can we do differently? And comfortable making mistakes. And you've probably all heard fail fast, right? People don't want to take on new challenges or risks because they're afraid they're going to fail. Well, yeah, sure, fine, but you're going to learn something when you fail that might get you then to your ultimate goal. The key point here that I'd like to leave with you is that you have a choice of whether you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. That is the most critical part. You have a choice, and you can wake up every day and make that decision of who you're going to be. And we'll talk even a little bit more about who you're being later on in the workshop. All right. So my goals: introduce the powers of processes and planning, even after something has happened. So again, this is about now, and it's about the future. Ultimately, I wish for you to recover quickly, have your business be better prepared for the future, and to finish this race out strong. And if you stay until the end, I do have something exciting I'd like to share with you, and I hope that it's something that you'll want to hear about. Love this slide. So why is this so important? So the two best times to plant a tree, 20 years ago and today. I just love that one. Yes, I wish in our businesses that we had planted more seeds 20 years ago or 2 years ago, uh, and maybe made different decisions then. So we're in a better position now to face a crisis. But I can't go back 2 years or 20 years, but I can do it today. And there ain't nothing wrong with that, because 20 years from now, I'll be glad I did. So that's a little bit of our mindset today. Megan was very kind in telling you a little bit about me. So yes, I have been coaching for a long time. Although I was in banking for 32 years, pardon me, many of those years, coaching was my go-to management and leadership strategy. And I will tell you, it never, never let me down. I work with a group of coaches nationally, and am a part of a smaller group of that organization that creates new programs and ideas for the organization. Been a member of COSI for a long time, been on the board. I'm currently on the finance committee. I chair the audit committee. I don't know, they thought, banker, give them the audit committee. Probably not a smart idea, but we've had a great time with that. And as Megan said, I work in the areas of continuous improvement and transformational leadership. More importantly, with that long career, I've done some things right, and that's good. That was success. But I've also done some things wrong. And I think all of us, if we're honest and vulnerable and humble, will say the same things. And I love this slide. If you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing anything. I'm positive that a doer makes mistakes. And I don't know if how many of you on the phone know who John Wooden is, but John Wooden was arguably one of the most successful coaches in NCAA basketball history. He was with UCLA. He won 10 NCAA championships in 12 years. We see the March Madness and how incredible that is. Can you imagine, winning 10 out of 12 years, that big tournament, if you will. Although back then, I don't think they had the exact same type tournament, but he won 7 in a row. And there's not another Division I program in any sport that's ever won more than 4 in a row. So John Wooden's a pretty smart guy. And I think what we're learning from him here is that, hey, there's nothing wrong with mistakes. In fact, if you're not making them, you're not doing enough. You're not trying enough. Why am I telling you this? I don't know. No, listen, as I said, I've done some things right. I've done some things wrong. I've tried handling difficult situations without a process. I don't know if you've been there, but hey, just do this by the seat of my pants and, my best guess. Used to think that I had to be involved in everything, that I knew best. This is the curse of small, medium-sized businesses, and quite frankly, even large businesses, right? Even in politics, one might say that people want to be involved in everything. The boss wants to be involved in everything because only they can do the right thing. Wow, that's a great way to drive yourself crazy and to an early grave. If you've got people in your organization, there's nothing more empowering than delegating, putting people in the right position and trusting them to do their job. I used to think that once I did it, I didn't have to go back and check. It's like, yeah, I'm sure I made a great decision. I don't need to go back and back check that thing and make sure that's okay. Listen, so the point is, there's a lot of mistakes that are made, and a lot of them, we kind of create that through our own. If we go back to that mindset slide, arrogance, right? So hopefully we're ready to look at a different way to do this, a right way to do this. Now, this slide looks like a lot of stuff, and this is actually a synopsis of the government's process on crisis management preparation. I'm not going to go through all this, but I will tell you, you'll find out that if you that there's an opportunity to get this this PowerPoint presentation so you can have all the details. And actually, Megan and Reagan, my understanding is that this PowerPoint will be and presentation webinar will be posted to GCP and to the COSI site. So so you'll have a second shot at it if you so desire. But business impact, you know, what's critical to the business operating, and have we done that analysis? And then the recovery, what happens when you lose something that was necessary, and what happens when you get it back? You know, what are the plans? What are the steps? What do we have to do here? Have you done a gap analysis to show where the challenges are? And then what's the plan? Write down the plan of how to recover and reconstitute that business. What is that plan that you have? And then one thing we don't do is testing our plans. I had a interesting conversation. One of my coaches was with an organization, and they had a problem with their backup on their data. And I said, well, gee, what, you know, I'm sure you tested that. Oh yeah, we test it every quarter. And you know, we contact the you know, our backup provider, and they load the information, and we look at it and say, oh, yep, there it is. He said, but we've never tested that in an actual work environment. So they tested that it loaded and it was there, but they never used it live with customers. Well, guess what? It didn't work. And so, you know, they thought they were testing and they weren't testing enough. But this is where we find out if we have the right processes and the right strategy in place, we can avoid a lot of pain. So, all right, that's great. That's a big picture look, if you will, on crisis management planning. This is what I want to talk more about today. If you see the highlighted box under the yellow, plan development, you know, developing plans to ensure continuity for all critically identified items. At the end of the day, that is the most important thing. Have you identified them, and have you developed plans for them? That's true about things that we don't even know have happened, but it's true now when we have actually witnessed things and experienced things happening. So will we be prepared for that next race, if you will? And there will be one. You know, who knows? It may be version 2 of this crisis. It may be an entirely new crisis that we can't even imagine right now. Who would have imagined 9/11? Who would have imagined this corona and the stay-at-home requirements from it and the huge changes in business? Will there be another one? Yeah, there will be another one. We don't know what it is yet, but that's okay. We can prepare for it, maybe better than we did this time, but we can learn from it as well. So here are the easy parts in this. And this is, as you can see, it's in a circle for a reason, because we've always got to be doing this. First, do your business impact analysis. Create your recovery strategies. Create a plan, test and exercise, and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And I'm going to go through a few of the pieces parts of this. And again, you'll be able to go into it in more detail. But, you know, what are we talking about? Business impact analysis, right? The critical tasks that need to be done, the processes that need to be done. Identify critical positions that perform those critical tasks. Identifying critical infrastructure and employees. You know, there's nothing scarier than having one employee who has all the keys to the safe, right? Or all the all the secrets. They know all the skeletons are, and all of a sudden, where is that person? Wow. So, you know, the old term cross-training, really important. If you're on your own, if you're a sole proprietor, well, you know, that doesn't mean that you don't have to document these things. You know, God forbid something happens to you. Can somebody walk in there and kind of clean up the mess, right? So verifying organizational structure, identifying those critical business inputs, right? Who are my important clients, my suppliers? What's our relationship with the government, the staff? And then identify those communication plans. Wow, we learned this to be a big one, right? Those organizations that were prepared and had the infrastructure for virtual working and folks working from home, great. But those who didn't, who said, no, we don't believe in that working from home stuff, have learned a pretty valuable lesson in all of this. And then we go from there after that analysis on their strategies, right? What's the gap analysis to correct business items during that analysis here that we just did on the business impact? That's the BIA. Documenting things. You know, if you do this right, and again, I'm not suggesting that right now during this pandemic you create this plan. I'm saying let's look at this right now for what we can learn from it. If we already had a crisis management plan, did we include everything we should have? So that's something we want to do. But what can we learn from this now? And have we documented this? But if you go through this process, you can actually come out with a beautiful document that has all this stuff in it that can be updated. And honestly, some real peace of mind, and it won't keep you up at night. Explore multiple strategies to handle loss of critically identified items. Create organizational authority plan. You know, who's responsible for what? Last thing you want is people pointing fingers like the scarecrow saying, oh, that wasn't me, that was you. Not a good thing. And we can prepare for those things. And then what's the plan? Develop the plans to ensure continuity. So, all right, we think we identified all the areas, and we know who should be involved. We know what the processes are now. What's that plan? Let's put it together and document those processes and assign people to those. It's great to have great plans, but if nobody's accountable, nobody knows they're accountable, that's a bit of a problem. And assign responsibilities and upkeep the testing on the plans as well. And then the testing exercise, and I like this. Obviously, it seems incongruent, but in preparing for battle, I've always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. And if we're in if you all had live audio right now, we could talk about this one and what you interpret from that. But what I interpret from it is that planning is so critical because it makes you consider most, hopefully all of the alternatives, and you get ingrained in you know what all the levers are. And even if the plan doesn't go the way you want it to, you still have all that information and all that knowledge and are prepared to move ahead quickly. So here's where we start to get into action. I think this gets in kind of the fun part, right? For you, if we think about all that's happened and we think about those things that we just went through, you know, the crisis management stuff that really is in a way a good SWOT analysis on our organization. But here we are today. So I'm going to kind of fill this out. This is very simplified. But what I would submit is that I don't care if this is a 1-person, 5-person organization, or if it's a Fortune 100 company. They may have a big old fancy detailed spreadsheet that does the same thing, but it's the same thing. So let's call this a very simple illustration. We've got a company here called King Trophy, and their vision going into this pandemic was to be the choice trophy supplier to leagues and businesses. All right, that was it. They had a nice little business going. Everything was going fine. And you know what happened. So they said, you know, that original vision of ours, you know, again, thinking about a fixed mindset versus a mindset that is all about moving forward. What's their new vision? To create unmatched recognition products and promotions so that everyone feels special. Now, if you look at those, there's quite a difference, isn't there? In fact, that new vision actually has a little bit of emotion to it, something that can drive people. And so from this, you say, you know, what is our rallying cry for the remainder of 2020? Who are we going to be? What are we going to kind of get together on and get excited about? Well, for this group, it was expand our mind and abilities on what we can offer to make people feel appreciated. And 2 times year-to-date revenue from the date of shelter in place. So wherever they were, they're going to do 2 times that amount before the end of the year. So it's a goal. It's like a thermometer that you put in the office, and you start filling it in with red as you meet your goal, whatever it is. But most importantly, expand our mind and abilities on what we can offer to make people feel appreciated. So this is a rallying cry, right? You're starting to get an idea of this vision and what it could look like. So lessons learned. All right, what did they learn through this process? And for them, it was the market was too narrow. The market they were going at was too narrow. That they can be creative when they're forced. Isn't that funny? I don't have to be creative unless I have to be creative, right? It's about a feeling. It's not about a product. That's a huge one, right? That's a huge one. It's not about the product. It's about the feeling people get from it. And that cash is king, right? So for many, the PPP program has helped with some of the pain here around cash, but it just highlights the importance of cash. And USP and UVP, not sure if you're aware or familiar with this term, is better said, but the unique selling proposition is the USP, or the unique value proposition. This is pretty important, and if you've never worked on a USP or UVP, I strongly recommend it. Kind of your elevator speech in a way, although I hate that term, but it's a little bit what it is, right? What makes you special? Why should I even work with you or listen to you, right? So when someone needs to be recognized or appreciated, we help you make them feel like a king. Well, if you said to somebody, what do you do? Well, when someone needs to be recognized or appreciated, we help you make them feel like a king. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool. Tell me more, right? But for this organization, this is, again, a bit of that rallying cry. So future fixes, what do they come up with? Well, they know that they need to have 4 months operating expenses on hand. They know that their website update, that they need to create a website update so people could create their own, create their own versions of trophies and recognition. And they needed to be able to have local delivery. People couldn't come into the stores for them. So yeah, like many of the restaurants out there, they figured out this was something they had to fix. But now that they've done it, hey, people are going to get used to these new services, right? So it may not be, oh, well, it's not a pandemic anymore. We don't need to do that. And people say, yeah, but I kind of like that. So we need to think about that. Also, and this is critical now, what are the future opportunities? What have we learned from this? That's really where I want you to focus your mindset and what we've learned from this. So advertising new services, their future opportunities, advertising new services, because they've created new services during this time. Calling on businesses, which they did not do. They just said, we're here, but they didn't call on, they didn't develop that business. Online creation tool. This is where clients can come in and create their own trophies and recognition items, and develop the King service. So they've obviously said, hey, you know what, we need to get serious and passionate about who we are as service and be proud of it and have that be a part of our rallying cry. So those were under kind of the lessons learned area. And then the USP, UVP under that area, what can we do now that we couldn't do before? So this is a way to say, yeah, this has been tough, but there's some good things that came out of this. We learned some things. Virtual calls and proofs for them was very important. Sell an experience. This isn't just somebody coming in and buying some hardware from their stores. It's an experience. And do signs they had not done before. So, and there was a call for it, and they said, okay, great, let's add that to our repertoire. New opportunities, business for recognition. Create King Appreciation event. Virtual visits to our store. Yeah, fantastic idea. Design your own award program. And then, very importantly, what's our competition doing? And are we watching them? Number one, to know if we can learn anything and steal any ideas from them, but also to be able to sell against them. If you don't know your competition, you can't sell against them. And I don't mean bad talking competition. I mean, hey, yeah, I understand, Mr. Customer, that you're talking to my competitor. Let me tell you what we can do. And when you know what your value is and your differentiators are, then you can better sell against them if you know who they are. So what do they do? They're just selling trophies. One of them closed. One in-store only service. They haven't reacted at all. So that's a fixed mindset right there. So this is just a blank one. And if we were all kind of in a room together, we'd have some fun and fill this out. Most importantly, it's in here for you because it's a great opportunity to do it. And I leave it blank for you because it's an opportunity for you to say, yeah, you know what if I go through that myself or with my team? And how can that help shape the future of the organization? So again, that will be in the PowerPoint, and you can look at that and decide whether that's something you'd like to use. So I can't not do this. So you've come up with those things, and now it's time to create these new strategies. So here's where we are. This is where we are. What are our strategies for the future? So let's be clear on this. I know you've seen 100 times, but it's so important to see it. Goal, that measurable objective. All right, we're going to do X, right? And we can measure X. We know whether we did it or not. The strategy is that vision of how to attain the goal. It should be a consciously and purposely devised plan, and one that can be clearly communicated, right? This isn't a set a goal and, well, let's see what happens. You do a little bit of that, I'll do a little bit. No, you create a goal and then you put a strategy, and then you build on the tactics. What are the tactics? Those are the actions that you need to take in order to achieve the goal. So when you start to build out your plan, if it relates to this, and you get into these new opportunities and future opportunities or fixes, it's not enough to identify them. You got to come up with a goal, you got to come up with the strategies and create those tactics. Goals, the power of clarity and simplicity. Get crystal clear on what you really want and why. Name it, claim it. This is what we want to do. Here's why we want to do it. Only establish goals and action plans for important wants. Don't major in minor things. And this is what happens. We get this big goal out there, but that feels like it's so overwhelming. And so what we find ourselves doing is making time, doing little stuff, right? We're prioritizing poorly, and we don't take on those major goals. We just kind of piddle around with the little things. Set priorities among competing demands. Use discrimination. Understood. You can't do everything all at once, but you can be focused. Concentrate that focus, the energy, the efforts on high priority, high value activities, those that move you closer to your vision. Once you know your vision, and this is important, and it's in this transformational world, when you know what you're committed to, you may have heard of Simon Sinek and his why, his golden circle about the why. Why do you do what you do? Why do you get up every day? Why should people care what you do? Once you know what that why is, that's what you're committed to. And all the actions that you take are in service of that. They're in service of that commitment, in service of that why. So those are the things where you need to put those are the things you need to put that energy into. Those are the things that move you closer, right? The activities and actions have got to be aligned. Bottom line, with clarity and focus, you can achieve more, feel better about the current situation, and provide clarity and confidence, family, employees, customers, clients. We got to get our act together. We have to be clear on who we are being as an organization, create the plans and the strategies, the goals, and go after them. So recommendation, don't try to boil the ocean. I would say, ask yourself, what are the top 3 goals, top 5 goals that we believe as an organization we need to address right now? And then you've probably heard the SMART, SMART goals. They've got to be specific, they've got to be measurable, they've got to be attainable, They have to be relevant. In other words, are they actually fixing or doing what we want them to do? And they've got to be time-based. Goals no good if it's like, well, someday we're going to do this. That doesn't cut it, right? So I know that this is repetitive, this whole SMART thing, goals, but we forget it. We forget it, even though we've seen it 100 times. So we are almost done, and we'll have some questions, hopefully. But what is that? Such exciting news that I promised. Well, because I believe in this so much, and we're in unprecedented times as business owners, and we are, and I get that, especially in my role. And because we can't expect the government to save us, yeah, they've done some good things, but my goodness, and I'm not, this isn't political, but every time the government tries to do something, the unintended consequences, and even the PPP loans, it's like, well, we don't really know what the rules are yet for repayment, but here's some money. But we can't rely on them or anyone else to save us. We are responsible for our lives. We are responsible for our businesses at the end of the day. And because you have shown that you're truly interested and you stayed here, you stayed till the end of this, and that tells me you are truly interested. I want to give everyone some value here as a courtesy on my part. But an hour coaching session, this PowerPoint, and something that is an addendum, if you will, a complementary document that I created called Off to the Races Workbook and Planning Process. And you'll see this, I'll show you in the next slide a little bit about what's in that. But if you are interested, and this truly is complimentary, this is truly something I would like to add value to you, and it would make me feel as though I was giving back during this time, contact me. There is my phone number, there is my email address, and again, I'm sure that you'll be able to get that if you go on to the GCP or Cozy sites and look at this again. But please do contact me. If you've never worked with a coach before, you just haven't lived. No, if you haven't worked with a coach before, it's worth a try. It's interesting. There was an article I think in yesterday's Wall Street Journal, and it was about the Fortune 100 or Fortune 200 executives who have either re-engaged with the coaches that they'd had or have accelerated working with their coaches. And it's funny, they say many of these CEOs have had coaches for years and years and years, way before they became CEOs, and they've just kind of brought them along with them through the process because it's one of those things where people at work don't want to, you don't necessarily want to talk to people at work around, this is where challenges are, opportunities. I need to be in a free space to brainstorm. Sometimes it's okay at work. Sometimes, you're not so sure. And one thing I know for sure is that nobody at home wants to hear about your problems at work anymore. So having a coach is a great place to go and create ideas and help hold yourself accountable. So again, the workbook, if you can see this, some of the things that I would share with you are, what's happening in an area of finances, what's happening in an area with customers, with the team, with yourself, with suppliers, operations, sales, your core focus, what KPIs or triggers do you have, and what does success look like? So it's a nice opportunity to actually put in place some of the things that we talked about in that crisis management process. So one last bonus slide for you under kind of this additional comment on transformation. And that is the world of who you are being, regardless of circumstances. That is what transformation is about. It is who you're being, regardless of circumstances. Circumstances right now are the COVID-19 pandemic. Who are we being under those? Well, who do I want to be is maybe the question. So this is very interesting. It's similar to the phases of the crisis that we talked about before. First, at the very beginning of this, right, as individuals, there was the fear zone, right? We hoarded food, we hoarded toilet paper. I don't know if you were a toilet paper hoarder, but my gosh, you couldn't find it anywhere. I complain all the time. I transmit my anger and fear-related emotions to others. I forward all messages to others. I don't know if you remember early on in this thing, how if you got some kind of an update on something, it's like, oh, I got to tell everybody about this. Anyway, we all start in that fear area to an extent. And then we hopefully move into this learning zone, right? I stop compulsively consuming things that harm me, from food to drink to news. It's pretty important. I start letting go of things that are out of my control. Yeah, there are things that are out of our control. Okay, fine. I'm not going to worry about those. I'm going to put my energy someplace else. I identify my emotions. Really, where is my head right now? I make myself aware of the situation and think about the best way to act. There's nothing wrong with taking a pause. When I said before that the mindset conversation around you have a choice. Are you fixed or are you growth? It's the same thing every day. We need to be aware, and we can pause and make a choice instead of just reacting. I verify information before I share it. So this gets back to that forwarding all these emails, right? Let's just scare the heck out of everybody by forwarding things that aren't true yet. I acknowledge everyone is trying their best. That's really important. We know we're going through a hard time sometimes, and we often forget that others are as well. And a little bit of empathy there can go a long way. So that's a learning zone, and hopefully you've moved out of the fear zone to the learning zone. And now there's this growth zone, right? Finding a purpose. And when we talked about the why and the commitment, it really is a fabulous time to say, what is the purpose? What is the why of our organization? And getting excited about that. I think of how I can help others. I use my skills and service to ones in need. This was, we've seen it everywhere, right? We've seen how many people have done things to help others during this time and to help them get through it. And this kind of a webinar, whether it's valuable to you or not, I hope to God that it is. But how can you help others? How could I help others? Show empathy to myself and others. I live in the present, but I focus on the future. I live in the present and I focus on the future. I don't focus on the past. I keep myself emotionally happy and transmit hope. I show gratefulness. I find ways to adapt to changes. I practice calmness, patience, relationships, and creativity. Right, so that's all fabulous stuff, and really good for us to think about. But the reality of it is that this has been a forced transformation, right? This has been a forced reinvention of us. We didn't create it ourselves, but we're having to deal with it. Well, bad news, good news, right? The bad news is it was forced on us, and the good news is that it was forced on us, and we were able to make changes that we maybe never thought we could. We thought they were impossible for us, but lo and behold, necessity is the mother of invention, right? And you found, and your people found, I'm hopeful and I trust that they could do more than they thought they could, or do things differently than they thought they could. So, and this is the way it's going to be, for a long time. Things are going to change. Things are going to be an accelerator. I'm not saying this is the new normal. I don't like that, but there is no new normal. The new normal is things are going to change. It's just a question of how rapidly they're going to change. This was a huge, rapid, accelerated change. Well, it won't be the last, so will we be prepared for it is really the question. So life doesn't turn out the way it should. It doesn't turn out the way it shouldn't. It turns out the way it does. That's a mouthful. That goes back to, geez, planning is great, or plans are great, but planning is more important. Life doesn't turn out the way it should, and it doesn't turn out the way it shouldn't, and we just live that. We just live the fact that we thought we had a plan, and it was gone. So the question is, who are you going to be in the circumstances that surround us? And do you believe that you can do even more than you thought you could before? And that's really where the opportunity is. The opportunity here is to unleash your power, to not have any limitations on where this can take you and where you can go and where you can bring your team and your family to. And I ask you to consider embracing this as a huge opportunity to move forward. And with that, I will say thank you very, very much. And we'll see if we have some questions. So I'll turn this over to Reagan, I believe.
Yes, it is me, Kurt. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions, and I also want to remind everyone that you can submit your questions in the question panel if you have any for Kurt. The first one is, can we get a printable version of the worksheet that you showed?
Yeah, so the PowerPoint that'll be out there, Reagan, I don't know what format that's going to be in. Do you know? In other words, if they go to the GC website, well, they won't be able to. They'll just see the webinar, right?
Correct. The attendees will get the PowerPoint, but yes.
Okay, so everyone who's on here, I will get your emails and I will send you a copy of that to fill out. And obviously, if you take me up on my offer for the free coaching conversation, you would get that there. And if that's something you wanted to work through together, we could do that as a part of our time together as well. So the answer is yes.
Next question as well is, how should I as a business owner go about changing our vision and goals after the pandemic?
Yeah, communication is a powerful thing, right? So the why, the first thing I would do is this. It sounds like you said, how should we? So I'm guessing there's a team involved. My recommendation would be to go to YouTube and to get the Simon Sinek. It's called the Golden Circle. And the Golden Circle is, you'll find it. Just go into YouTube and type Golden Circle, you'll see it. Simon Sinek is the name, S-I-N-E-K. You can't miss it. What I would recommend, there are two versions. There's one that's kind of a shortened version of 6 or so minutes, and the full version is about 18 minutes. It's well worth it. I would sit down with your team and I would watch that together. And I would talk about it because he talks about the why, right? So the why can start to get you into the vision of what is it, why are we here, what are we looking to create? And I would recommend that being the first thing that you do. And then the team and you have to truly go through some collaboration and come up with something that is energizing and that creates that vision for you that you can truly rally around as an organization.
Great. Third question here is, how often should we evaluate and tweak our goals?
Well, yeah, that's a great one, right? The first thing you need to do is hold people or the organization accountable to achieving them, right? So you create a goal and you only know what you know when you create it. And then you start to look and see if you can achieve that goal. And there's sometimes when you blow it away and it's like, well, let's look at that, right? That's a good time to look at it. When we've exceeded it, it's like, wow, what more could we have done even? Or if you're not achieving it. So if you've got a goal, there is no time. There is no perfect time. All the time, how's that? But the reality of it is that you create that goal and you track the results. You've got to track the results because the results will tell you when you've got a problem or don't have a problem. And when you got a problem, that's when you need to tweak it. You need to get the team back together and say, listen, we said we'd do 100 and we only had, 10 weeks. So we should have done 10 a week. Pretty good math, I know. We should have done 10. We're only doing 2 a week. What's going on? All right, so you check it there and then you find out what the issue is. You're not beating anybody up. Well, what's the gap? What's missing here from us being able to achieve this? So the first important thing to answer that question is to track it, because you don't know if you've got a problem unless you're tracking it and watching it carefully. When you see that there's an issue, that's a great time to get in there and tweak the goal, because it may be that you had a bad goal. There are times when what sounded like a great goal when you were together and brainstorming, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you know what? We just found out that's really not what we want. What we really want is this. So track it first, and then it should be a part of your business process, right? Whether you look at it daily or weekly or monthly or whatever, depends on how you can capture the information. But if it's an important goal, you got to stay on top of it, and you got to know when there's a problem or whether there's time to celebrate, because there's nothing worse than exceeding a goal and not celebrating it. You got to celebrate. So there's both sides of that coin. I hope that helps.
Wonderful. And since we're getting close to the end, we'll finish up with a final question here. The final question is, I've never been to a coaching session. If I go to a coaching session, what can I expect to walk away with?
Well, that is a great question. A great coach is going to be there to help you with the things that you want to work on. So, what are the challenges? What's going well for you, first of all? Let's celebrate that and let's understand why those things are going well. What kinds of behaviors and activities are happening that those are successes for you as an individual and organization? And then what are the challenges? What's happening that you just can't seem to break through? You've tried some things or whatever, or there's just a new goal. It's like, here's where we want to go to. Here's our vision. And we actually came up with our why and our vision, but we don't know the next step, right? So a great coach is going to be there for what it is you want to accomplish, and they're going to help you to accomplish those things. The other thing a great coach will do is hold you accountable. It is one of the secret powers of having a coach is that you know how we all are. You make these goals for yourself. I'm going to do this by this time. I'm going to learn to play guitar, whatever. But if you don't know that you're going to see your coach in 2 weeks or your guitar teacher in 2 weeks, you might not practice, right? Well, same thing with a coach. When you know you're going to see your coach and you agree to listen, these are the action plans that you as an individual committed to, you're going to take action. You're going to take action so that you can get together with your coach and say, all right, here's what we agreed upon. Here's what I did. These are important goals for me. I got this done and this I'm having trouble with this. Let's talk about this. Why can't I break through on this? So I will tell you that thankfully over the years people have looked forward to their coaching sessions. It's a very positive, future-oriented conversation. It is not about beating up on the past. It's about learning from the past, and it's about growing into the future.
Oh, that's wonderful. I want to thank you, Kurt, for sharing such great information and insight with us, as well as the generous offer of the coaching session. Thanks to all of you for joining us this afternoon. We hope you found today's presentation engaging and informative. If you have thoughts to share, please let us know. We'll be distributing the recording of today's session within the next day or two. Once again, I want to thank you, Kurt. If anyone has any questions, please let us know. Thank you. This concludes today's session.
Go get them, everybody. Bye-bye.